Hi all, I have another very interesting game to show you from the Ultimate Blitz Challenge. Fabiano Caruana playing against Kasparov in round 12. And the interesting thing here for me is the Sicilian defense was played after e4 from Fabiano. We have the Sicilian defense. And as many of you know, the Najdorf variation was favored by both Bobby Fischer and Garry Kasparov. And here we do actually go into a Sicilian Najdorf, this a6 move, Sicilian Najdorf, after Miguel Najdorf, a great player in his own right. So we have here h3, and this was popular in the Fischer era and revitalized in recent years, especially by super grandmasters like Vichy Anand. So this h3 with the idea of g4 and bishop g2, very, very interesting idea, but it stems back from the Fischer era. So e6, Fischer had used this move a number of times, actually, with great success. g4, we have bishop e7, bishop g2. So white is controlling d5 a little bit more. g5 might also be useful at some point. Knight fd7 was played by Garry Kasparov. This is a very well trodden path according to Livebook. So queen e2 here, black castling, white castling queenside. So a very interesting scene is set here when both players are castling on the other wing, opposite sides of the board. It's usually a very interesting game can result. We have here knight takes d4, bishop takes d4, and now queen c7. So black's usual plan here is to try and hold the e5 square sometimes, but quite often to play things like b5, bishop b7, a rook coming to c8, b4, to exert pressure not just on the c file but on the center at the same time as well. We have here f4, b5, not too worried about e5. That is the kind of standard move here, hitting the rook. And yeah, it looks a little bit scary for black, but black should be okay. It's thought to be okay, it seems. So, but here, yeah, we have a kind of deviation with g5 from what is usually played. And this does mean now that after b4, this knight can be slightly awkward. Does it really want to go to b1? In fact, here it goes to a4, and it's potentially a target on a4. We have e5, which not only blunts the bishop behind its own pawn, but promises to open up the e5 square for this knight. After bishop e3, in fact, Kasparov does take, not minding the inconvenience of the d6 pawn being slightly on its own, isolated backward. But the important thing here for black is that knight on e5. And here, of course, it's stopping, liberating that pawn. That bishop is behind the pawn. So black's pieces are quite lively here. We have queen f2. This looks dual purpose, not just for knight b6 to be possible, because in this position, if black gets another move, bishop d7 will be nasty, absolutely nasty. But queen f2 might also look at the king side later, and the f file. We have here rook b8 guarding that b6 square. And now h4. And you might think in this position that it could be worth playing bishop d7. Why not? How does white react to bishop d7? In the game, bishop g4 was played, hitting the rook. Pardon me. Bishop g4. Let's go back here. After h4, bishop g4 was played, hitting the rook. If we look at this position, imagine bishop d7 is played. White actually has what seems to be a very important resource based on the queen f2 move. Doesn't want to play b3, it just looks like lost. But knight c5 might be the idea here. So if takes, we can take on e5. And if takes here, we can take here. And there's d7. So yeah, it seems as though bishop d7 is a major idea in this position. So Kasparov bypassed that with bishop g4. Okay, rook d2, and now after rook fc8, that c5 square is really thoroughly controlled now. So bishop d7 actually is not a bad idea, asking that silly knight on the rim. What is it doing there in this position? Caruana makes some space for it with b3, though, so it can jump back to b2 and then maybe even to c4 later. We have queen a5. And now, yeah, the knight's kind of pinned to a2, so this bishop d7 needs to be addressed. We have bishop h3, at least stopping things like bishop d7 now. And instead of taking on h3, kind of tension maintaining move bishop e6. And really, if white takes now, then f takes. This is a promising f file. And it also, of course, helps this pawn in the center. It's got a fellow pawn and controls d5. This knight's still out of play. So white doesn't necessarily want to take on e6. Caruana tries to progress his attack with h5. But now a fantastic resource in the position. Can you see what black can play here? Kasparov to play here. What does he play? If I give you 5 seconds to pause the video, starting from now. Yep, still based on this knight, this miserable knight. We have the move knight c4. Yeah, hitting the rook. Takes, we can take here. This is very dangerous, this position. The rook just moves. Yeah, it would look very awkward to take here if we just show this. Because even this can, we don't even have to, apparently engines say that queen takes a2 is possible. This is a harmless discover check. This is better for black. This position is a mate threat here. So this, even this position, it's better for black. Black's really broken through in this scenario. So yeah, so after this knight c4, we have the rook simply moving. And now Kasparov takes this pawn on g5. We have now Caruana actually deciding to take on c4. It looks dreadful, but for the moment, yeah, queen takes a4 is ruled out. Bishop takes g5. And you might think, well, what about just taking on f4 first and then taking on a4? So f4 and then a4. In fact, Kasparov played bishop takes c4. So he's threatening bishop takes f4 and bishop e2. Bishop takes e2. Very interesting. We have bishop takes g5, queen takes g5 check, rook e3. And yeah, for the moment, white has an extra piece. And here is a funny moment of the game, actually. Yeah, Kasparov does seem to make quite a controversial move here. He plays actually the move bishop d3. There are better moves, I believe. The thing is, Caruana has a simple move here which wasn't addressed, which is just to take on c8, and he might actually be able to survive this attack if he did that. This is actually technically is better for white, but remember it's the Blitz game, so these things happen. I mean, Caruana's definitely not on form, and he said himself that in Blitz, for him, it's very easy to lose quite a few in a row if he's not in form, and it just shows it shows he wasn't in form, not just taking there. Because then what does black do? Takes. Then we've got the move c3 trying to blunt this c file, and it's not entirely clear here now. Yeah, this position, although this rook's pinned, we can try to evict the bishop, and then black actually would be in trouble. But yeah, Caruana misses his chance. Okay, don't expect too much from Blitz games, but yeah, this is a major missed opportunity. Instead, comically, he collapses quite badly, sort of taking the rook here. High drama. He just collapses with queen g3 now, allowing Kasparov to take on c2 and take another pawn. Bishop can't move because we take the rook. And now queen e5 threatens a mate in 1 with queen a1 mating. So rook takes d3 looks like a clever response to be able to take on c2 now. Rook takes a2. And yeah, for the moment, white is 2 pieces up here now. Yeah, crazy. But black has a lot of pawns, an armada of pawns. So 5 pawns up, but 2 pieces down here, with the threat of queen a1 checkmate. And that's very difficult to parry though. So white actually has to give up a rook here, it seems. Rook d2 was played, and we have check. And then this check here, and then picking up this rook. Now this scenario is better odds for black. Still the armada of pawns, and rook versus bishop and knight if the queens come off. And in fact, after this sequence, check, h5, queen e5 hits g5 and b2. Not too many choices for white, but to exchange off queens. And now there's pass pawns on both sides of the board. The bishop and knight are totally overstretched here. They can't really do much against the pawns. And here Caruana resigns. Yeah, a bit of a comical game though. It did feature what seems to be a major blunder, but that's the nature of blitz chess. That makes it even more exciting, the blunders quite often. Anyway, I hope you got something from it. It was just very nice for me to see Kasparov playing the Sicilian Najdorf. You know, to a large extent, the ideas are beautiful that Kasparov has had in the tournament, but sometimes he does blunder, of course, and especially against Wesley So, he blundered a few games, which I don't know if you want me to show you them, maybe, but because even though he blundered in those games, some of them he had very, very good positions and fantastic ideas. Okay, so comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.